Welcome to the Level 2 Functional Skills NCFE October 2019 Reading Exam Video Solutions. Before watching this video, please make sure that you've read the documents associated with this paper and that you've attempted to complete the paper yourself. Okay, so let's have a look at question 1. So the questions in this section refer to document 1, so we only need to be focusing on document 1 for these questions. So question 1 says, what best describes the tone of document 1? So the tone of a text is just the overall mood, sort of the feeling that the reader gets when they're reading it. So we've got amusing, balanced, sarcastic or righteous. And the answer we've got here is B, balanced. So let's go and have a read of the source and see if we can see why it is a balanced article. So we can see that the article has different sort of experts weighing in on the issue. So we've got a spokesperson, Victoria Hunter, here, talking about how the fashion industry is one of the major causes of greenhouse gases, so links to negative impacts on global warming there. However, we've also got another contributor here, so fashion guru Sarah Riley, who is saying that fast fashion has enabled new retailers to enjoy tremendous growth and avoid losses. So we've got positive aspects of fast fashion being cited there. So they're showing both sides of the argument here. We're showing negatives and positives of fast fashion. We can also see through phrases like however, both sides of the argument are being shown here. And then we can see with this closing statement here, whatever the impact on the economy and on the environment, it would seem unlikely that throwaway fashion is going to disappear soon. So it doesn't come down on either side of the argument in this closing sentence here. It simply rounds off the arguments that have been put forward during the article and doesn't really say which side the author is coming down on. So we can say that balanced is the correct tone of the article, but let's have a quick look at the other options to check that they're not also correct. So we've got amusing. So there's no sense of humour really in this article, it's quite a serious topic. We've got talks of global warming, we've got quite a lot of facts and figures, it's quite an informative tone. There's not really any humour in there. So we can say that's incorrect. Sarcastic. So sarcastic just means that someone says something that they don't really mean, usually for comedic effect. So we've already discounted amusing. There's not really any sarcasm in here. There's no attempt at humour. So we can discount that one. And then lastly, righteous. So righteous just means morally right or the correct thing to do. So there's not really a righteous tone in this article. It doesn't come down on either side of the argument. It sort of quite fairly poses both sides of the argument and it just explains the different viewpoints. So we can cross that one off as well. So the answer here would be B, balanced. So question 2, state 2 meanings that Sarah Riley could be implying by using the term fast fashion instead of throwaway fashion. Okay, so this question is looking for us to look at the implications of the word fast and the word throwaway. So what are the different implications or sort of underlying meaning to these two words? So if we look at the word throwaway, it's quite a negative term. It suggests that it's wasteful, it's bad for the environment, it's quite a negative word. Whereas fast in itself, if we didn't already know the term fast fashion and have some negative connotations towards it, fast is not an inherently negative term. It kind of just insinuates and implies that it can change quickly. So we've got it can change quickly there, and it is not necessarily wasteful or negative. The word fast versus the word throwaway is not necessarily a negative word, whereas throwaway would be more negative. So if we go up to the text, we can see Sarah Riley's contribution here. So fast fashion has enabled new retailers to enjoy tremendous growth and avoid losses. If a product isn't working, then they quickly launch a new one and make a swift recovery. So we've got swift and quickly here. So it's suggesting that fast fashion means that things can just move on quickly, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. So we can say that the term fast fashion instead of throwaway fashion implies that it can change quickly and it's not necessarily wasteful or negative. Question 3. Give one reason why the writer has used each of the following organisational features. So we need to give one reason why the writer has used each of the following. So we've got bullet points and a footnote, and we need to give one reason as to why the author has used each of these organisational features. So organisational features, also sometimes called presentational features, are just ways of splitting up the text that make it easier for the reader to sort of read and digest. So if we look first at bullet points and we scroll up to the document, so we can see that bullet points are being used here, and we can see that they are listing sort of statistics to do with global warming and links with fast fashion. So we've got 235 million items of clothing were sent to landfill last year, and the UK has the highest consumption of new clothing per head in Europe. So we can see that the author has used bullet points to clearly separate and emphasise statistics about throwaway fashion. And then secondly, we need to look for a footnote. So a footnote is just an additional piece of information. It's usually printed at the bottom of the page. So if we look here, we can see that this is a footnote. It's quite a long one, but it is still a footnote. So if we read that, GDP, gross domestic product, is the total value of all the goods and services produced by a country over a specific period of time, usually annually or quarterly. So we can say that this footnote, the reason that the author has used it is to explain this term here, so to explain GDP. So to explain what GDP means would be the correct answer. Okay, question 4a. So what is the main point made by document 1? So we're looking for the main argument or the main point made by document 1. And the answer we've got here is to show that fast fashion has a negative impact on the environment. So because document 1 is quite a balanced argument, you could also have things like there are concerns about the growth of throwaway fashion, and there are advantages and disadvantages to throwaway fashion. So because it's a balanced argument, we've got different sort of main points made by the author. So here we've got some negatives to do with fast fashion, and then here we've got some positives as well. So we can see that a couple of experts have been cited stating their concerns about fast fashion. So we could have that as a main point. We could also have that there are advantages and disadvantages because we've got both sides of the argument being talked about. And we can also have to show that fashion has a negative impact on the environment, as we've got lots of statistics here to show that it's got a negative impact on the environment. So any of those answered would be correct for this question. Question 4b. The writer believes that throwaway fashion is here to stay. Give 2 examples from the document that support this opinion. So we need to look for 2 examples from the document that support the opinion that throwaway fashion is here to stay. So it's not going anywhere. So we can look for anything where the author literally says that it's not going to disappear soon, which we can see here. So it would seem unlikely that throwaway fashion is going to disappear soon. So if we look for that in the source, we can see that it's in the closing statement here. So it would seem unlikely that throwaway fashion is going to disappear soon. So that's the author very literally saying that fast fashion is here to stay. And we can also have a more implied meaning here. So the days of people buying clothes and keeping them, wearing them for years have gone. So if we look up in the source, we can see that that is right at the start here. So the days of people buying clothes with the intention of keeping and wearing them for years have gone. So that implies that fast fashion is here to stay, and it's unlikely that people are going to go back to buying and wearing clothes for years and years. So both of those quotes show that the writer believes that throwaway fashion is here to stay, and we've got 2 examples to get the 2 marks. Okay, so we're now in section 2, and these questions refer to document 2. So we've got a new document now, and we can forget about document 1 for now. Question 5. Give 2 words that identify the style of writing used in document 2. So we need to give 2 words, because we've got 2 marks here, that identify the style of writing used in document 2. So when we talk about style of writing, this is just the overall sort of word choice, sentence structure, language used by the writer. We can have things like informal, formal, persuasive, informative, those sorts of things. But we need to look at the word choice and sentence structure to work out the style of writing. So if we go up to the source then, so if we have a quick scan, we can see straight away that there are a lot of rhetorical questions. So we've got, what's the point in spending all that money? Do people really throw away clothes after wearing them just once or twice? What's the point in buying something you don't really like in the first place? So we've got a real sense that the writer is talking directly to who they're writing to. And we've got that sort of conversational, quite a chatty style. We can also see this style in sort of the personal anecdote. So I still have clothes I bought when my son was a baby, and he's 35 now. So it's quite a personal, chatty style. The writer is talking about their personal experiences. And then if we read on, so we get to this last paragraph here, so come on everyone, stop making silly purchases, save your money, save the environment, and save exploited workers. So we've got quite a persuasive style here, so we're using this collective address here, so talking to everyone who's reading it. And then we've got this repetition of save here, so save your money, save the environment, and save exploited workers. So it's really trying to persuade people to take this advice on board and stop buying fast fashion. So for this answer, the style of writing can be described as persuasive, conversational, colloquial, chatty, or personal, anything along those lines. Question 6. In paragraphs 2 and 3, the writer repeats questions beginning with what and why several times. Give 2 reasons why she has done this. Okay, so we're looking at document 2 again, and we're focusing on paragraphs 2 and 3, and we're looking for questions beginning with what and why. And then we need to give 2 reasons for the purpose of those questions. So give 2 reasons as to why those questions have been used. So these questions are what we call rhetorical questions, and they're often used in persuasive writing to sort of directly address the reader. So if we have a look at the source, we can see that in this paragraph here and also in this paragraph, so paragraphs 2 and 3, we've got lots of what and why questions. So we've got, what's the point in spending all that money? What's the point in buying something you don't really like in the first place? What about the quality? Then further down we've got what about the people making all this stuff? So these types of questions are directly addressing the reader, and they're making the reader really think about the topic by posing a question to them. Also, by repeating this word what and why, we've got the writer creating this real emphasis on their feelings towards fast fashion. They clearly don't like it. So we can say that these questions have the purpose of emphasising her strong feelings about the waste involved in throwaway fashion. And we can say that the rhetorical questions encourage the reader to think about throwaway fashion by directly addressing the reader. Okay, so question 7 says, give one example of each of the following features being used to present a negative image of throwaway fashion. And we've got A, emotive language, and B, personal experience. So these are two features of a text. Emotive language is a language feature. Personal experience is a feature of a text that the writer uses to create an effect. So we need to give one example of each of these two features in the context of being used to present a negative image of throwaway or fast fashion. So we've got utterly ridiculous here, and we've got like that one I had to step over this morning. So emotive language is a language technique, and it is where the writer uses language associated with an emotion in order to make the reader feel that emotion. So here we've got utterly ridiculous. Ridiculous is quite a strong emotion, it's quite a strong thought or feeling, and it's going to make the reader feel that emotion. So that would be a correct example of emotive language. So let's go up and find that in the text. And we can see that that's here. So it says, how utterly ridiculous, in response to this rhetorical question here. So the writer says, do people really throw clothes away after wearing them just once or twice? How utterly ridiculous. So we're talking about this being ridiculous here. Do people really throw away clothes after wearing them just once or twice? And the strong emotive language is going to make the reader feel that emotion. So let's have a look at the example given for personal experience then. So we've got, like that one I had to step over this morning. So if we go up and find that one in the text. So we can see that here it says, why pay £3 for a jumper that will shrink in the first wash? So it gets thrown away, and where does it end up? Probably spilling out of a black bag down my street, like that one I had to step over this morning. So this is what we call a personal anecdote or a personal experience, and it's used to involve the reader in the text, and also to support the writer's point of view that throwaway fashion is a bad thing. So we can say both of those examples of these two features are correct. Question 8. What is the meaning of the word spilling as used in document 2? So if we look up the dictionary definition of spilling, it says to cause or allow liquid, usually liquid, to flow over the edge of its container, especially unintentionally. So we can go up to the document here and find the word spilling, and we can see it appears here. So if we read the sentence, we can have a look at the context and work out what it means. So it says, probably spilling out of a black bag down my street. So in this context, we can see that spilling means overflowing, and it's describing the overflowing of waste due to fast fashion. So it means overflowing and emphasises the amount of waste there is. Question 9. Identify one example of each of the following in document 2. So for this question, we need to look again at document 2. And we need to identify one fact and one opinion in the source or in the document. So a fact is something that can be proven, so can be proven to be true, can be facts or figures, or just something that you can prove. An opinion is something that can't be proven, so it's usually someone's thoughts or feelings, that sort of thing. So, for the fact here, we've got, I have a knitting machine. This is a fact. It is something that we can prove, either prove to be true or prove to be untrue. and it is simply the writer stating that they own something, so that is a fact. An opinion, we've got, for an opinion, we've got no one will remember what you wore last week anyway. This is an opinion, it's just the author's thought or feeling. We can't prove whether someone will or won't remember what you wore last week. It's simply the opinion of the writer. Okay, so section 3, these questions now refer to document 3, so we've got another new document. So question 10 says, when was the discussion forum started? And the answer here is 2010, so let's have a look at the document and see how we know that. So we can see here, up here we've got online discussion forum, which is what we're looking to find information about, and we've got this little star here. So when you see a little star like that, it is often referring to a footnote at the bottom. So if we scroll down, we can see that there is in fact a footnote here, and it tells us that the discussion forum was set up in 2010. So the answer here is, when was the discussion forum started? It was started in 2010. Question 11. Why does Shefali feel hurt by some of the comments which have been made? So if we look at the number of marks here, we've actually got 2 marks available, but the question doesn't tell us that we need to find 2 pieces of information. So always remember to look at the number of marks available, and usually if it's 2 marks, you'll need to find 2 bits of information. So we need to look in the source and work out why Shefali feels hurt by some of the comments which have been made. So let's have a look at the document and see whether we can find out. So if we look at the document, we can see Shefali's contribution is here. So we only need to be focusing on this part of the document. So let's read it together. I don't know where all this fuss has come from. I've worked at Main Street Fashions for nearly 10 years now. We've always had cheap but good quality clothing, and I've had a job. I think some of your readers want me to be unemployed. If nobody buys clothes and they all keep them for years, I soon would be. So we can see from this that Shefali feels hurt because she feels like some of the readers want her to be unemployed. So she feels like they want her to not have a job. So she feels as if people are trying to drive her into unemployment, would be correct. We can also see from her contribution that she does not agree that cheap items are always poor quality. So here she says, we've always had cheap but good quality clothing. So she feels offended at the fact that people are saying that it's cheap and of not very good quality. So there are 2 reasons as to why Shefali feels hurt by some of the comments which have been made. Question 12. What can be inferred from Fashion Queen about how she feels from her contribution to the discussion forum? So once again here we've got 2 marks available, so we need to be finding 2 bits of information. And we've got this keyword here, inferred. So this just means finding the underlying meaning. So the meaning might not be directly stated here, we've got to work it out from what is said. And we need to focus on Fashion Queen's contribution, and we need to find out how she feels. So let's have a look at the document. So we can see Fashion Queen's contribution is here, so we need to have a read of this part of the document. So in the first sentence she says, what people forget about is the pressure young people like me are under. In the old days there wasn't any social media, so people didn't remember what you wore last week, but now they do. So from this we can infer that Fashion Queen feels quite under pressure to conform to social media and to buy fast fashion, because she feels under pressure that people are worrying about what she wears. So we can see she feels as if she's been pressured to buy fast fashion items, as she blames social media for this. So let's have another read. So she says here, I wore the same outfit to 2 of my mates' birthday parties last year, and you wouldn't believe the abuse I got. So from this, abuse is quite a strong word. It's emotive language. So we can infer from this that she feels quite upset about the comments that her friends have made. So she feels upset about the comments that people have been making about her. So these are two things that we can infer from what Fashion Queen says in the forum. It's not obvious meaning, but it is something that we can pick out. Question 13. Give one example of information that bold text helps the reader to find. So we only need to give one example here, because we've only got 1 mark, and we need to give an example of some information that bold text in the document helps the reader to find. So the answer we've got here is the name of the website. So let's have a look at the document. So yeah, we can see that the name of the website is in bold there. We can also see online discussion forum in bold, so it tells the reader that this text is an online discussion forum. We've also got the names of the contributors in bold, so that helps the reader to find who's speaking. And we've also got this tagline here, so where our readers get the chance to have their say, so it's telling you what the online discussion forum is going to be about. So any of those answers would be suitable, but this one, the student has put the name of the website. Moving on to section 4 then, the questions in this section refer to multiple documents. So make sure that you're reading the question carefully to see which documents you need to refer to in your answer. And we notice the amount of marks available. So this question is for 3 marks, so you should spend a little bit longer on these answers and these comparison questions. We should spend a little bit longer because they are worth more marks. So let's read the question. So question 14, compare the views expressed in document 3 with those in document 1 and how these views are conveyed. So this question is kind of asking you to do 2 things. So firstly, it's asking you to compare, and it's asking you to compare the views expressed in document 3 and document 1, but also how the views are conveyed. So in other words, this just means the methods used by the writer to convey their views. So we can see in this answer we've got reference to both documents, so document 1 and document 3. The student has talked about the view that the document 1 presents, so document 1 presents the view that fast fashion may have a negative impact on the environment but a positive impact on the economy. Document 1 uses bullet points to give a range of quotes from experts, facts and statistics like 1.2 billion tonnes and so on. So here we've got the views explained of document 1, and we've also talked about the methods used. So document 1 uses bullet points to give a range of quotes. And then the student has also used a direct quote from the source as evidence of the methods used by the author. Phrases such as in contrast are really good to use to signpost to the examiner in questions like this. They're really showing that you are comparing. So the student has written, in contrast, document 3 presents a range of opinions about fast fashion, including is an online discussion forum, including the opinion that social media is driving the fast fashion industry. So we've said that document 3 presents a range of opinions, summing up the views, and then we've given an example of one of those views expressed. We have got a slight grammatical error here with incorrect word order, so where it says including is an online discussion forum, this should come before this. So document 3 is an online discussion forum and it presents a range of opinions about fast fashion. So because this is a reading paper, you're not going to lose marks for your spelling, punctuation and grammar, but make sure any grammatical errors don't obstruct your meaning and the examiner can still understand what you're trying to say. The students then gone on to say these views are communicated through informal and colloquial language, so there's the method there. And they've given a quote with my mates, birthday parties and cos as a direct example of that method. So overall, the student has talked about both documents, explained the views expressed, and explained how the views are conveyed by each writer. Okay, so the final question of this paper is question 15. So question 15 asks us to analyse all three documents and explain which document is the least biased. And this is worth the most number of marks on the paper. So we've got a couple of things it's asking us to do here. So we need to make sure that we refer to all three documents. That's really important. And then we also need to explain which document is the least biased. So biased just means when a writer comes heavily down on one side of the argument, and it will often disregard any other points of view. So as this question is worth 4 marks, we want to be really spending more time on this one again. And we need to make sure that we are analysing all three documents. So you get 1 mark just for identifying which document is the least biased, and for this question the correct answer is actually document 1 or document 3. You could have both, as long as you argue it, you could have both. So the student here has selected document 1 as being the least biased, and they've explained why. So they said it gives a balanced view. Balance just means discussing both sides of the argument. A balanced view of fast fashion industry, acknowledging both environmental drawbacks and economic benefits. So the mark scheme for this question says all three documents need to be considered, and there needs to be a comprehensive explanation supported by examples. So we can see that the student's done that here. They've explained why document 1 is the least biased, and they've supported that with evidence. So they've said the writer uses a range of facts and statistics, and they've given an example of that, so a quote from the text. Then they've gone on to talk about document 2 and document 3, so we're analysing all three documents, and we've said document 2 is the most biased, explained why that's the case as only one point of view is presented. And then we've got some quotes which back up that point there. Same with document 3, so we've said it gives a range of somewhat biased opinions. So acknowledging the level of bias in the text and saying why that's the case. And then again, we've got another example here. The answer is also neatly divided up into paragraphs, which is really making it easy for the examiner to give you those marks. You want to make it as easy as possible to get those marks. So to round off then, the student has analysed all three documents. They've said which one is the least biased and why, and they've backed up their points with quotes and evidence from the text.